main temples?
I think we did not go all the way to the end.
He did. Oh, you'll see. So one of the places in the Hovelam is this cave. Now, different things are said about this cave, but one of the things that's said is a cave where Prahlad stayed for some time and worshipped Lord Nrsingadev here in the Hovelam. And over the ages, great sages have also stayed here. And it's just, Hovelam is a place of Nrsinga Bhakti. And here's one of the assistants who helped Dhruva, pointing, as you see, to the top of this hill, where one of the temples of Lord Nrsingadev is. And it's said that this is, on the top of this hill, is where Nrsingadev appeared. Now to get on, did you go up the top of the hill? No, it's too difficult. To get there, you can't climb up the front, you have to go around the back, and still even climbing up and up and up and up and up, it's very dangerous. Radhanath Maharaj told me when he went there with some disciples, old ladies and old men and children, and said, well, it's very difficult, you can stay here. We'll just go up and take darshan, but everyone wanted to go, so they made the whole trek. Here it is, climbing up and up and up and up, and when you get to the very top, it looks like this. This is said to be the very spot, the pillar, this location, the pillar from which Lord Nrsingadev appeared. Now, a little Prabhupada story, especially for ISKCON devotees. Very early in the Hare Krishna movement, Yashodanandana and one other devotee went, Achyutananda, went to visit places in South India, and they went to a Hovelam, and when they saw this, and they were told by the local people, this is where Lord Nrsingadev appeared, they went afterwards and asked Prabhupada, did Lord Nrsingadev actually appear here? Because our understanding is that Lord Nrsingadev appeared in the planet of Indra, because he had taken over the palace of Indra, and it was on the terrace of the palace of Indra that he appeared. So was this the place, or was that the place? And the answer that Prabhupada gave was, they're not different. Because so much devotion to Lord Nrsingadev has been offered here in Hovelam. Spiritually, they're not different. That was the answer that he gave. And this is a little shrine at the top of that hill. And the story that Dhruva told me was that this was the last place that he visited at the end of that day, and by the time he reached the top, the sun had set. So it was too treacherous to try to go back down. So the guide had a key, and he said, let us just take rest inside here for the night, and lock the door from the inside. So they did that, and when they locked the door, and they were taking rest, Dhruva heard some sound outside, like some rumbling and some rattling of the door, and Dhruva said, what's that? The guy said, never mind, just take rest. And in the morning he told him it was a bear. Because this is wild, this is wilderness. The bear had smelled that we were inside and was trying to get inside, but it was locked from the inside, so it couldn't. So that the whole place of a Hovelam is not at all commercial, like many pilgrimage places these days have become. Very, very simple and wonderful. Here's an example of one of the places where a deity, for who knows, hundreds and thousands of years has been worshipped. One sadhu would stay here and keep his little ashram, and inside is where he did his worship. Here's Dhruva with a Nrsinga Murti and a Varaha Murti. And who can guess how many hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes of brahmanas lived here and did this puja. It's just amazing. Here's some photos of some of the principal deities. There's 9 principal deities in what's called Lower Ahovalam. And we'll start our little tour by seeing the deity of Lakshmi Nrsimha. This is at the bottom, and it's the largest of the temples, and the temple itself is very ornate and very beautiful, and the standard of deity worship, as you can see, is very nice. And many people, when they go to Ahovalam, at least they see the Lakshmi Nrsimha temple. The second one is Bhargava Nrsimha. This name Bhargava Nrsimha is named after Parashuram, because when Parashuram was sent by his father Janmadagni to undergo austerities, the place where he did his austerities was nearby, and so a deity of Nrsimhadev was named after him, Bhargava Nrsimha. So the place was Ramatirtha, where Parashuram underwent his austerities. And then this is Chhatravada Nrsimha. And Chhatravada Nrsimha is perhaps the best maintained or well preserved of the deity. You can see the features very clearly. And, worship for, who knows, centuries. Then the fourth of these main deities is Yogananda Nrsimha. As you can see, this horizontal strap between the knees of Lord Nrsimhadev, yogis would sometimes use that for sitting and doing their yoga asanas. The pujaris in Ahovalam say, they know because they've worshipped the deities for so long, that this is, of the deities, this is particularly merciful, most merciful of all the deities. Just as we know Lord Nityananda is the most merciful feature of Lord Chaitanya's associates. And this is the fifth of the main temples, Karanja Nrsimha. Karanja is named after a fruit-bearing tree that's right near the temple and unique to this area. Karanja Nrsimha. You see he has his bow, and he has his disc, and he's seated in a calm pose. Now, next is Ugra Nrsimha. And Ugra Nrsimha is very much like the deity in Mayapur. I was saying this specifically for our ISKCON devotees. Ugra means like fierce, terrible. And the Ugra form is either just before Lord Nrsimhadev attacks Hiranyakashipu, or while he's in the midst of bifurcating Hiranyakashipu. And it is said that this form, Ugra Nrsimha, should not be worshipped by householders. Householders should worship Lakshmi Nrsimha or Prahlad Nrsimha, and only renunciates should worship this particular form, Ugra Nrsimha. You see he has some extra hands, because in his hands are his weapons, and he's bifurcating Hiranyakashipu. Jwala Nrsimha is the next. This is the temple at the top, where the deity, where it is said that at this place is where Lord Nrsimhadev appeared, and where he actually destroyed Hiranyakashipu. Seated on his lap, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. The eighth is Moha Lola Nrsimha. Moha Lola is given its name because when the goddess of fortune Lakshmi saw this form, she became bewildered. I've never seen this form before. And so she underwent penances in order to pacify the Lord and understand the feature of this Lord that he had displayed to her. And the final is this Bhavan Nrsimha. And the final picture from Mahobalam is a self-manifesting deity of Lord Nrsimhadev that appeared from Shalagram Shila long, long ago. Something very similar in Lord Chaitanya's followers, where a form of Krishna appeared from a deity that was worshipped by Gopal Bhatta Goswami, the son of the chief priest of Sri Rangam. Self-manifesting Nrsimha deity. There's so much devotion for Nrsimhadev in Ahobilam. Very wonderful. Now we're going to see some of the outside of this lower temple, the Lakshmi Nrsimha temple. This is one of the features on the outside. Again, here's the Yoga Nrsimha shown here, carved on the outside of the temple. Now, this is a deity of Lord Nrsimhadev that's worshipped in the West. You'll see a number of them for the time being, the next series of slides. This is in the Bavarian forest in Germany. The deity is huge. In fact, today, they have an annual festival at the Nrsimha temple, and thousands of devotees come from all over Germany and other parts of Europe to participate in Nrsimha Chaturdashi there. The deity is so big that to bring the deity in, they had to use a crane. And they understood once the deity is installed, the deity's never going to move because it's too big. This is the Abhishek, the installation ceremony, and this is a very rare photo, close-up of the deity, Prahlad, seated on the lap of Lord Nrsimhadev, and you can see, actual gold ornaments, very similar to how he's worshipped in South India. The gold coins around his ankle, and the other ornaments adorning his body and Prahlad's body, and the symbols of Vishnu and his earrings. He worshipped very, very opulently. This is from a distance, along with the yantras down below, Prahlad and Nrsimhadev. Here's another image in another dress. Very famous deity, very beautiful deity. Worshipped in traditional style. Oof. And here's a close-up of Prahlad seated on his lap. This is the Lord Nrsimhadev that's worshipped in Sridham Mayapur, the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Similarly, they have the traditional lamps for his worship, and very, very opulent. This is a photo taken on Chandan Yatra, an Akshaya Tritiya. His whole body is covered with chandan. And those who have seen his body not covered in chandan, he looks very fierce and angry. But you can see with chandan, he has a big smile. He looks very happy seeing the devotees. Also in Navadvip, same area near Mayapur, this is Nrsimhapalli, a place where Lord Chaitanya went to visit. It's a very, very, very old deity, so old the features are hard to discern. But we'll see a close-up. Of course, here's his eyes and his forehead. And here's his arms, and on his lap, there's Lord Nrsimhadev being ripped asunder. And it's a very wonderful place. Because it's in Mayapur, it's especially appreciated for a place of kirtan. Anyone who's been there, or if you sometime go there, have nice kirtan. It's fantastic. In the back is the lake where it is said that after Lord Nrsimhadev killed Hiranyakashipu, he came here and he washed his hands in this lake. And so as a result, the pilgrims regularly come and take their sacred bath in the place where Lord Nrsimhadev had washed his hands. Very sweet place. Anyone recognize this deity? Simachalam? In Andhra Pradesh, near Vishakhapatnam, is a Sri Vaishnava temple called Simachalam. Simha Achalam, the hill of Lord Nrsingadev. Way, 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 way up on a hill. And the deity is a deity of Varaha Nrsimha. And you see the deity is covered completely in chanda. I'm going to give a little description. That once a year for one day, an Akshaya Tatiya day, it just passed, the chandan is removed. And it's a fabulous ceremony. The devotees that live in that area describe to me. Very, very special. They stay up till midnight, offering special prayers. This brahmana every year offers this family offers those prayers. And then at midnight they take rest. And then at 2 o'clock in the morning they're up again. And they bathe the deity and remove the chandan. And for that day, the pilgrims that come are tens of thousands all day long. Massive festival. And in the evening, they take 20 kgs of chandan and again cover the body of the deity. You can see the deity in the middle. And then some period of time later, another 20 kgs, another 20 kgs, and for the rest of the year, it's 80 kgs. 80 kgs of chandan covering the body of the deity. And once a year they remove the chandan. Now how the story behind is the deity manifested when at Simachalam, this is the mountain which the demons pushed Prahlad. And there's a detailed description of this. As Prahlad was falling, he was falling and falling, and it's not that Lord Vishnu immediately captured him, but he went down and down and down, and to see when would Prahlad become worried. Prahlad never became worried. He was fearless. Just before he hit the rocks at the bottom, Lord Vishnu caught him. But he was very angry that Lord Nrsingadev, that Hiranyakashipu had tried to destroy him. So he came to the top of the hill and manifested himself in this form of the deity, Varaha, because near the ocean, and Nrsinga, half Varaha, half Nrsinga. And there he resided, still very angry, until sometime in Satyuga, King Pururava and Urvashi just happened to be there. They had been traveling and saw this beautiful scenic place. And they heard a voice, and the voice was Lord Nrsingadev saying, "Please worship me." So they performed his worship exactly as he instructed them to do. And he said, after some time, but I'm still very angry. Get some chandan and cover me with this chandan. This is described in Puranas. And so, according to the indication of Lord Nrsingadev, they did. And according to the indication of the Puranas, that worship has continued until this day. So here's the Nija Rupam, the deity without the chandan, and the Nitya Rupam, the deity covered in chandan. So this is what the deity looks like. They don't allow photographs, so artists has made a depiction. A very famous deity in Simachalam, Varaha Nrsinga. And this is the temple where Varaha Nrsinga is worshipped in Simachalam. Some of you may know this deity. Anyone visited this deity? Mangalagiri. Yes? Yes? Yes, I visited there. Very nice deity. As you see, he has his mouth wide open. And I heard this, and it's true, that when there's a procedure, when you go up and up and up and up and up and get to this really narrow place where the deity is worshipped, and The pujaris will then, for some modest rupees, you give some buttermilk, chash, in a lota. And the pujari, you can listen carefully. If you go to Mangalagiri, listen. As they pour the liquid into the mouth of the deity, you can hear the deity swallowing. Gulp, gulp, gulp. And then you hear a little belch. And that says, that's it, no more. So then they give you the rest of the clay pot. And then the next person, the same thing. And it goes on all day long. And where does the liquid go? There's no big pot at the bottom and they're collecting the big pot and change the big pot. It goes into the mouth of the deity. He accepts the offering. Here's a very well lit. When you go, it's dark. It's not lit up like this. So they must have made some special arrangement for the photograph. A very reciprocating deity of Lord Nrsingadev, Mangalagiri. North of Hyderabad is a place where Nrsimha Yada Giri Gutta. Has anyone been there? Some more people than the other one. Nice temple, isn't it? There's several temples in this area. It's on the way to Warangal from Hyderabad, that same road. It's just straight north. And wonderful deity, Nrsimha Yada Giri Gutta. Nice stories in connection with the pastimes of this deity and how the deity came here. There's another photo, similar, of the deity. And near Chennai, Cholingkor is the place, and Yoga Nrsimha. Again, you see seated in this pose with the strap between his knees, and worship with Sri Imbu and Neela in front of him. A very opulent worship, very famous deity of Lord Nrsingadev in South India. And here's another jeer of this Sri Vaishnava person, the story behind. Does anybody know this person? Because I've been in audiences where they know that he's a very famous personality. Now he's, I believe, deceased. But for the time when he was just a little boy, little, maybe not that little, but young, he was trained by his father to worship this deity, and his whole life he worshipped the deity. And as he became very old, he was unable to put the crown on the deity and do the other details, so he built a little ladder. He spends hours every day worshipping Lord Nrsingadev, filled with devotion for Lord Nrsingadev. Very famous personality and famous deity. This is in, of all places, Vrindavan. This is a deity of Lord Nrsingadev that Nanda Maharaj worshipped. If you go sometime to Vrindavan, visit Nandagram, the place of Nanda Maharaj. At the bottom of the hill, there is this Nrsimha deity. There's Nrsimha, and to one side is Krishna, and to the other side over here, is Nanda Maharaj, worshipped by Nanda Maharaj himself when Krishna was present. Here's a close-up. Then there's another place where there's a cave where Nrsingadev is worshipped, and right around at the bottom of Govardhan Hill, almost at the southernmost part of Govardhan Hill, there's another temple of Lord Nrsingadev. Does anybody recognize this deity? It's Udupi Krishna. And once in a year, on Nrsimha Chaturdasi, he's dressed up as Lord Nrsingadev, and one of the temples is Udupi Nrsimha. This is a photograph of Udupi Nrsimha. And in Jaipur, along with the Madan Mohan deity that was worshipped by Sanatana Goswami in Vrindavan, but taken to Jaipur for safety, over to the left side, there's a Nrsinga deity in the very same temple room, the Madan Mohan temple. Here's a closer photograph. This is a deity of Lord Nrsingadev worshipped in the hills of West Virginia at the New Vrindavan temple. Every day they have Nrsinga prayers for Lord Nrsingadev after Mangalarti in the morning. And this is in Bangalore as one walks up the steps of the hill temple in Bangalore, the temple of Lord Nrsingadev, to receive the benedictions of Lord Nrsingadev before entering the temple. And some of you may have visited or may sometime visit our ISKCON temple in San Jose, California, Silicon Valley. So the devotee that's in charge there is Vaisheshika Prabhu. And it's an interesting story. This deity was found in Mexico. And some devotees were worshipping, but they weren't able to maintain the worship to the proper standard, so they requested Vaisheshika, would you like to worship? So he said, sure. And so there's a very nice temple, recently built, in San Jose, and you go there, you'll see this deity of Lord Nrsingadev, Lakshmi Nrsinga, and he's even going to show us his lotus feet. And this is the Utsav Murti in front. Now, a little story behind this deity of Lord Nrsingadev. Some of you may have been to Jagannath Puri, and you'll know, some of you may know, aside from the main Jagannath temple, there are many temples of Lord Chaitanya and the associates of Lord Chaitanya, one of them being Haridas Thakur's place where he did his chanting of the holy name. And there's a bakul tree called the Siddha bakul tree because it was created spontaneously by Lord Chaitanya just to provide shade. So some years ago, there was a cyclone in Orissa. Yes? Cyclone in Orissa, and one of the branches of the Siddha bakul tree broke. So the Pujari, he had been visited for 3 years in a row by Indradumna Swami and Ramabhadra and Suhas, our temple presidents in Los Angeles. So he saved the Siddha bakul branch, and he had a murti maker carve this deity of Lord Nrsingadev from Siddha bakul. It's now he gave one to Indradumna Maharaj and he gave the other to Ramabhadra. It's in his office, where he also then had a deity of Garuda and Prahlad, and he worships Lord Nrsingadev each day. This is a classic South Indian style of worship of Lord Nrsingadev. Some devotees in Potomac, Washington temple have this deity in their home. Very nice deity made in Chennai. And one of the artists from the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, named Riti, she and her husband worship this deity in their home. Very nice, attractive deity. Now some Shalagram Shilas. They're specific features of the opening of the mouth of a Shila that show opening and ripples in the mouth and so forth. And some devotees worship, as you can see very nicely. Here's some weapons of Lord Nrsingadev in front of him, his club, his conch, bow and arrow, his discus or Sudarshan chakra. Here's the markings inside. So these markings inside the opening of the mouth of a Shalagram Shila indicates this is Nrsinga Shila. And one of my godbrothers, Sridhar Swami, worshipped this deity of Lord Nrsingadev. I mentioned that Prahlad Maharaj, when he saw the form of Lord Nrsingadev, he said the sharp teeth and the pinching nails that you're showing, they don't give me any fear because they're meant for the non-devotees. So that probably isn't time to tell this long story, but the deity was once stolen out of his car. Sridhar Maharaj was visiting a place, and we went inside and he came back out. His car had been broken into. His computer was stolen, his camera was stolen, and this Lord Nrsinga deity was stolen. So when I found that out, I said to Sridhar Maharaj, boy, someone who's stolen the property of a Brahmana sannyasi and a deity, Lord Nrsingadev, they're in big trouble. He said, no, Lord Nrsingadev is very merciful. Somehow, I couldn't understand it, but his mood was so fixed, because he, from that worship, had appreciated how merciful is Lord Nrsingadev. So maybe some of you also in your home have worshipped Nrsingadev, or you know somebody who does. Those who do have this appreciation. Here's another Shalagram Shila of Lord Nrsingadev and other ones. Now some sculpture or architecture where the deity of Lord Nrsingadev is depicted. This is on the outside of a temple. This is a pillar inside a temple where Lord Nrsingadev is just appearing from the pillar. Here the pillar is breaking open. Here he's now combating Hiranyakashipu. Here he's beginning to place Hiranyakashipu over his lap. Now he's placing Hiranyakashipu over his lap and beginning to bifurcate him. These are all just sculptures on the walls or the pillars or columns of the temple. A little story behind this one. A friend of mine had an attraction for this particular murti. As you can see, these are arms that were broken. This is a 12th century, 11th century sculpture. And I don't know if here in Omaha, Nebraska, you know about Sotheby's. It's an auction place in New York City for artwork, like famous artwork. So my friend, who's a little wealthy, American, he has a devotee, he placed a bid for this deity. He thought it would be really nice. But he didn't win the bid. The bid that won was $62,500 for this deity. So all these other figures that you're seeing, just imagine their collective worth. Here's another carving of Lord Nrsingadev with lots of detail in his features. And another. Now this is the deity of, again, the Abhishek of Lord Nrsingadev on Nrsinga Chaturdasi. That's what we're observing today. The yogurt dripping down the body of Lord Nrsingadev, and then the honey and the milk, and again yogurt, then shower of flowers for his Abhishek. These are some stencil drawings of Lord Nrsingadev. Just different artistic ways of depicting the devotion. Once I showed this to a group of people, and one young man came up afterwards and said, "Can I have a copy? This would make a great T-shirt." At the base of the deity is a yantra. This is a standard part of worship, particularly in South India, particularly by Sri Vaishnavas, but it's also described in Sri Brahma Samhita. The yantra is a depiction on a brass plate. All the different nomenclature is depicting the abode of the Supreme Lord and the associates of the Supreme Lord and where they reside with him in his abode. So as you see, these are on either side at the bottom of the altar. And here we're going to see a close-up of Prahlad. You can't see so well because he's very small. Here's the lotus feet of Lord Nrsingadev. Here's the Shalagram Shilas at his feet, again the yantras. And when Lord Nrsingadev, why he appeared, it was to protect Prahlad. There's a close-up of Prahlad. So if the devotee of Nrsingadev, or the devotee of Lord Vishnu, is in difficulty, Lord Nrsingadev comes to give his protection. And if you anger Lord Nrsingadev, better watch out. Sharp teeth. So here's Lord Nrsingadev in other deity forms. I'll go quickly because this is the end. These photos I got from Dhruva as he traveled to different temples in South India. These are famous deities. I asked for their names. He said, wait till my book comes out. Didn't want to tell me. Buy my book, please. So here's a close-up of the same deity. But these are well-known, famous deities. Here's the Utsav Murti in the front. But for who knows for how many centuries together these deities have been worshipped. Again, the Utsav Murti in the front. Elaborate worship, some with very nice dress, some with very elaborate ornaments. Thousands and thousands of years, who can say how long this worship has been made. Sometimes he's shown with a big mustache, like this. Here he's got a really big mustache. And on a palanquin to carry him for festivals. Nrsingadev is a very famous deity all over. So famous that even on the side of the wall they depict the pastime of Lord Nrsingadev. So I'm just going to end with showing you some deity dressings of the deity in Sridham Mayapur. When I go to Mayapur, I somehow, all the deities are very powerful and very wonderful, but I'm especially charmed and feel reciprocation with Lord Nrsingadev. It's a fact that he's very merciful and very approachable, loving deity, very kind and affectionate to his devotee. You can see just as is done in South India, they have the hands of Lord Nrsingadev covered in this way. Sometimes it floods in Mayapur. This is the pujari offering flower at Arti from underwater. But the flood has never gone above what you see. It's never that the deity, although he's short, he's never been immersed in water. At least this much of his body is still visible. And this is just some sharing with you from the beginnings of my life in devotion to Krishna. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, I came to know about Lord Nrsingadev, and I was sharing with our Sunday program, just appreciating that when I was a very new devotee, Prahlad Maharaj was one of my heroes. I liked Prahlad Maharaj very much. So I became very fascinated with him, his compassion, his freedom from fear, his enthusiasm to give the teachings of pure devotion to anyone, everyone, even at the risk of his life, in the face of his father. And similarly, Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, risked his life to cross the ocean at an old age, had 2 heart attacks in the boat crossing the ocean, just to give the message of devotion to Krishna to the English-speaking parts of the world on the order of his spiritual master. So this is very much what the International Society for Krishna Consciousness represents. It's as with the mood of Prahlad Maharaj, as with the mood of our founder Acharya, to try in whatever way we can, in our simple and humble way, to give teachings of devotion to Krishna and Lord Nrsingadev, to anyone, everyone, as much as we can. Please create situations where that can be done. So I've come a long distance to spend this evening with you, and happy to be here with you, honoring Lord Nrsingadev on Nrsinga Chaturdasi. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So, what do we do now? Short kirtan and then? Huh? Okay. Your son can play your Nrsingadev song? Or no? No? Okay. Do they have the words for the Nrsinga prayers? Namaste Narasimhaya. As I mentioned, in our temples, whenever we have arti, minimum 5 times a day, in some temples it's 7 times a day. At the end of the arti, we sing Nrsinga prayers. So those of you that know the words, you can sing along responsively, and otherwise we're just honoring Lord Nrsingadev. Huh?
And also everyone will offer.
Very nice.
No, everyone will offer flowers while kirtan is going on. So everyone can stand in line, and Siddharth will hand over flower. You stand right side.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Oh, come up and play. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Everyone please sing along. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare
Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Thank you all for coming. And we're going to have Prashadam now.
Yeah. Sudhir from Vedantic Center of Nebraska wants to thank you.
Swamiji, we are very grateful to you that you visited us today and blessed us with the knowledge of Swami Sri Narasimha Rao and Prahlad ji. So thank you so much from the Vedanta Society of Nebraska. I wish you the best and please come again to bless us again on another occasion.
We'll see. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all for coming. Now we will have Prashadam, and so everyone can stand in the line and take a plate, and the devotees will serve you. Thank you very much. Narasimha Bhagavan ki jai. And also for your information, we have book table at the back. There are some devotees standing there. If you have some time, please look at it. They are very nice, interesting books on the yoga and reincarnation, etc. Also for information, we have every Sunday we have Gita program at one of our devotees' houses. So if you can write your email address there at the table, book table, we will subscribe you to our group, and you will be informed any important festivals like this, if you celebrate any festivals like this. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. How are you doing?